Folks, welcome back to the Bobby Bo Show. Here's the moves. It starts with d4, knight f6, the Indian game, and I'm going to play c4, get ready to play knight to c3 here. But after e6, I decide to go for knight to f3, and after b6, getting ready to charter the bishop, I play bishop to g5, pinning the knight to the queen here. They play bishop to e7, breaking the pin. But now I'll go knight to c3, and I'm just trying to finish my development here and control squares in the middle. And after bishop to b7, I want to play e4, but currently the bishop and the knight are defending that. I only have one knight defending it, so I want to play queen to c2 first, so I can play e4 next. And after d6, now I play e4, and I have 3 pawns in the center. Pretty good development here. Just have to get my bishop out and castle. But after h6, now I have to decide what to do with my bishop. Take here, go back over here. And I like to go bishop to f4 now because we're going to be controlling squares in the middle, fighting for these middle squares. And also sometimes the bishop can be a target on c7 here. So good to have the bishop on this diagonal here. But sometimes I drop it back. Sometimes I trade it off. Knight b to d7. They're getting ready to finish development. And now bishop to e2. And I'm getting ready to castle. So that's my last piece that I need to develop. And also I'm thinking about pushing e5 here. But that opens up their bishop to capture my knight. And then I would have to take back with the pawn here. So I want to take back with the bishop so that I have a good bishop on a diagonal here maybe. So bishop to e2 in case we start trading off pieces later, but also maybe bishop to d3 is okay too. But I like this open file here. I like the bishop on e2. Engine says it's the best move. Now they play knight to h5, attacking my bishop. And I don't mind them having this knight on the edge of the board here. They're obviously trying to take my bishop here and maybe trade pieces, but I thought about dropping it back to g3, and if they take, I open up the rook here. And I can maybe play like that, but I could also just play bishop to e3. And now their knight is on the edge of the board with no defenders. My bishop could target it maybe if this knight moves sometime, and the knight doesn't really have any good squares to go to here. It will maybe just have to go back. So not a great knight for them here also. And consider the fact that it only has this square to go to. So maybe we make use of that in a little bit. Very limited knight here. But now they decide to play c5. And before castling, they decide to start making some tension in the middle. And I could play d5 here, blocking the bishop here. Engine says best move. I could castle and do nothing, but I do decide to take here. Maybe not the best move, but what I'm thinking is I'm going to play something like rook to d1, and this knight is in front of the queen. It'll pin it to the queen if they take with this pawn, and if they take with this pawn, then that opens up the b file, and maybe I can like do some targeting over here. And I'm not really worried about opening up the b file for their rook. Maybe I'm gonna have my bishop back over here sometime to control the diagonal. But also, I am looking at how I can trap this knight. So they decide to take back with the b pawn here, opening up the b file. And I'm thinking about either castling kingside or playing rook to d1. And I'm playing on my phone this game, so I'm kind of holding the pieces in my hand and hovering them over the squares, thinking about what I want to do here. And I'm thinking about either castling kingside or playing rook to d1, and then I accidentally mouse slip queenside castling. Not what I was intending on doing here. I was just going to play rook to d1 and then castle kingside, and I think that's a lot safer, probably a lot better, because now they have the opportunity of attacking me on the b file, which is their open file here, a direct line to my king, which is not a big problem right now. And I think the fact that I have this center control and a good development lead and I'm castled, I think I'm okay. Engine says it's either a draw or a slight advantage for me. But after bishop to a6, suddenly it's +4. And why? What would you play now? Well, okay, what was the point of this bishop move here? Attacking my pawn, which is defended by this bishop, opens up the b file for them. I think they're obviously going to play something like rook to b1 or rook to b8, and then bring their queen and their other rook over here and attack my b file. So that's obviously their plan, but they forgot about one thing. This knight is almost trapped. And what can I do to trap this knight? Well, the only square that the knight can go to is f6. So if I played something like g4, then the knight has to go to f6. But f6 is currently safe, but it's not safe if I play e5. A great move here. And now the knight is trapped. And what happens if they take? Well, if they take, now the knight is pinned to the queen. Knight cannot move. You play queen to a4, hitting the bishop and the knight. Bishop goes back to c8. Now you play knight captures e5, hitting the knight, which is pinned to the king. Their best move, knight to f6. But now bishop to f3, hitting the rook. Rook to b8. But now knight to c6, fork. And you win. So they can't take the pawn. Instead, they play queen to c7, getting out of the way. But now I can just take here, or I can play g4, and the knight is trapped. Nowhere to go. And they just decide to go knight to f6, and I'll take it with my pawn. They'll take back with the bishop. And all right, now they have a bishop lined up here. They're about to use this file maybe, but they can't really do anything. It's a pretty easy defense. Very easy, very basic. No way to lose this, actually. So queen to d2, and now we're targeting the d6 pawn. But they can just play bishop captures c3, taking my knight, and after I take back with my queen, now I can't take the pawn. But that's fine with me. I like simplifying. I'm up a piece. When we trade pieces, it's an easier game. Less tactics for them. So when you're up a piece, try to trade all the pieces you can. And after king e7, I can just take on g7, can't I? Of course I can, but I did not. And that's fine. But if I take on g7, they play something like rook to g8. And then I just go back, and they can't take here because I take their rook. So it's just a free pawn, but I was afraid of giving them open files and giving them piece activity. I felt like with the closed pawn structure like this, I'm just obviously going to stack up on the middle file here. And since the king is in the center of the board, I just had to start breaking these pawns open, get my rooks in the middle. Should be an easy checkmate here. Bishop to f4, targeting the pawn once again. I would like to take here, hitting the king and the queen, but no, e5, attacking my bishop, blocking it off here. I just go back. And I like the bishop here. And I'm not in any rush to win this game. I'm up a piece. I'm just trying to slowly improve my position here. So getting the bishop to here, it's always going to be in line with the b file here. And I'm getting ready to play something like f4 later. So I'm just going to get all my pieces into the best possible places. Knight to f6 now. And they're hitting this pawn. Maybe the knight comes up to e4 sometime. But I play knight to h4. And now I want to play knight to f5, hitting the king. So they play g6, stopping my knight from coming forward. Now the bishop defends this pawn, and now queen to d3, and I'm lined up again on the pawn here. But I can't take right now, because the queen and the king defend. So they take the opportunity to move their rook over to b8. And like I said, they're just going to line up on the b file here. But now what would you do? And you're trying to simplify, look for ways to trade pieces, because the less pieces they have, the easier it is to win the game. And this rook is looking pretty trapped almost on this diagonal. I'll play bishop to f3 now, hitting the rook, and now bishop to b7, blocking the attack here. And we'll just trade bishops, simplifying the game now. But they're getting ready to double their rooks up. But I also want to double my rooks up, and I want to be able to defend b2 here, because I know that's going to be what they're attacking. So I play rook to d2 now. And now the rook is defending the second rank, and I'm getting ready to bring my other rook over. And they're ready for the attack on d6. They play rook to b6, defending. And now I should really think here and play f4 or rook to e1 and break open the middle. But first, this pawn is hanging, and I'm in no rush here. So just so there's no opportunity for the knight to come forward here, I'll just play h3 to defend. And after rook to b8, they're doubled up now. And I'm still not worried about it. I'm also just ready to play b3 at any time so that the a2 pawn can defend b3. So rook on h to d1, with just e1 here. Probably a little bit better. e1 would be good because it pins the pawn to the king, and then I can play something like f4, and we're breaking open the middle, and we're just ready to come down and checkmate the king, or trade off pieces, go into an endgame. But now queen is c6, and let's think about what this move does. Well, now the queen's on this diagonal, and this diagonal, getting ready to maybe come to a4 and target my a2 pawn. Should I worry about that? And I'm thinking about what I want to do now, which is definitely play f4, but I don't know why I wasn't thinking about f4. I was thinking about my pieces, and I was thinking about this knight on the edge of the board here, and I was thinking about how it could just do 3 quick moves, get to d5, and it's defended by a pawn on a really good square, forking the rook maybe. So I just figure d5 is the place I should put my knight. I want to play knight to g2, the queen defends g2, and my rook does not defend g2 because the pawn blocks it. So let's move the pawn up, pawn to f3 now, and now, okay, good pawn structure, right? Defended by the queen. Now the knight can come over. Okay, so no problems. And now knight to e8. Knight goes back. Great. They want to move their knight. I'll move my knight. Knight to g2. And I'm getting ready to come up here. But now queen to a4. And I expected this, right? They're targeting a2, which is b3. Attacking the queen, defending the pawn. No problems. But rook captures b3. I missed it. But so did they. Queen to a3 check. But now what do? You play king to b1. You play rook to b2. Well, your rook's defending the a2 pawn, right? No problems. Well, why would you ruin your lineup here, right? Keep all your pieces lined up, just move the king over, and you're good, right? But no! The brilliant rook captures b3, and it's over! The rook! Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about the rook sacrifice. The whole time I thought their most obvious play here is just to attack the b file, but they have no threat. But I didn't even think about it. And now, okay, instead of losing my queen, I'll take the pawn. But now the other rook comes down, checking my king, attacking my queen. I have to lose my queen. And now they're just up. And I threw a completely winning game, and that's why we have to have a bonus game. So smash like for bonus game. Here we go. It's another d4 game. Here's the moves it starts with. Queen's Gambit. They decline. They play the Marshall defense here. And anytime they play knight to f6 in this position, you know it's going to be an easy game. all right? Because after knight to c3, knight to c6, now you take the pawn. And they have to take back with their knight, right? Because the knight's here. They don't want to take back with the queen. And now you play e4, and you have 2 pawns in the center, attacking the knight. And they can go back, they can go to b6, or they can take your knight. And that's totally fine, because you take back with the b pawn. And now you have your 2 center pawns, and this one's defending. And this is just a great pawn structure. Slight advantage for white here. And it can get even worse for them if they play bad moves. They play e6, +1 for the engine. Knight to f3, we're just going to finish development, get ready to castle. Bishop to e7, they also want to castle. Bishop to d3 now, and this is where I put the bishop, usually in the queen's gambit, on this diagonal with the king after they castle. But the diagonal is currently closed off by this pawn. But there's nothing stopping me from pushing it to e5. And now look at the beautiful pawn chain in the center of the board, controlling the middle. They have no knight on f6. My bishop has an open diagonal. There's so many possible tactics. The engine says +2. We haven't even won anything yet. But what are they going to do now? f5. Okay, good move. And if I don't play the right move, then it's a pretty even game. But what's the right move here? Obviously, you have to play it en passant. Great move. And now what do they do? Bishop captures f6. Okay. And why is it +3 still, even though it's even material? Well, this pawn is all by itself. It's about to become a target. They actually can't defend it. You're going to play something like queen over here. I don't even know. Maybe bring the rook over to the middle. They can't defend this pawn. You have such a good center, they can't push it. And if you take this pawn with a queen or a bishop, it's like check also. And if they try to defend it, they're going to give up something somewhere else. So if you play this right, you're going to win material. But you have to play it right. What do you do now? Well, either queen to c2 or bishop to a3, because you have to develop your bishop. And why not just put it on a3? Strong diagonal, hitting the rook. And probably better than this diagonal, right? So just bishop to a3. But now they play bishop to e7. And they want to trade bishops. And I figure I don't want to do that, but I probably should just trade bishops. And after they take back with the queen or the knight, still up +2, and then you're still going for this pawn here. And either this pawn or one of these other pawns, you're going to take something. But I also figure if I just go back bishop to c1, okay, just fine on this diagonal. And their bishop is not really doing much over here because my pawns are controlling, and the bishop can't really come over here because my knight is controlling. So we'll just prevent the trade for now, but should have gone for it, but it doesn't matter. Now they play bishop to f6, and after I castle, they play queen to e7. And what do you start thinking about when you see queen to e7? Well, just a moment ago, I was thinking about how my bishop was on this diagonal, lined up with the rook. And obviously, I can't play bishop to a3 right now because the queen just takes. But maybe I could get ready for that. And I'm thinking about, what if I played queen to b3? Because queen to b3 hits the pawn here, and that's what I'm targeting. I'm about to play rook to e1, maybe bishop to c4, and just stack up on the pawn here. But then I was thinking, oh, they play knight to a5, hitting my queen, and then I have to move my queen. And I actually didn't think any further here, because I thought I could just play queen to a4 instead. So just queen to a4 right now, and then they can't play knight to a5. And then next I have bishop to a3. And also, what's their most obvious move here? What do you think they're going to do now? If they don't see bishop to a3, my queen is lined up with the knight here on this light square diagonal. They haven't developed their bishop yet. Just completely natural to play bishop to d7 here. And they're getting ready to play knight captures d4, attacking my queen, defended by the bishop here. And they're about to win material. But they didn't see bishop to a3. And this comes first. And now their queen's under attack. And they don't want to lose their queen. So they play queen to f7. But now just take the rook. But instead of taking the rook, I could play queen to c2 here. And this is even better because this is going to be basically checkmate. Rook's still under attack, right? And I'm about to take the pawn here. And like, okay, let's say like rook to d8. Because after bishop captures f7, king goes to h8. Because the bishop is on this diagonal, king has to go to h8. And now you play bishop to g6, hitting the queen here. And the bishop's on this diagonal, queen has to go to g8. And you're about to play queen to c2, and you're about to just bring the queen over here and checkmate or take more pieces. So they can't stop this. You're about to win the game. And that's what happens if you just go back here. But instead I take the rook, and after knight captures d4, now my queen is under attack, and my knight's under attack, and my bishop's under attack. But I'm up the exchange, and I just go back to d1. And after they take my knight, I take back with my queen now, instead of having to take back with the pawn. Now I'm also hitting this pawn, and I'm expecting them to just take my bishop here. But instead they play bishop to c6, hitting my queen now. But I just have queen to h3 now, and we're coming down to h7. And they can take my bishop here, and they're not going to get checkmated, but they are going to be down a bishop for a rook, and they're going to have no threats. I'm about to win more material, so they just resign now. But it could go something like king takes, bishop c4, bishop d5, bishop captures d5, e captures d5, queen captures h7, bishop captures c3, rook a to d1. And if they push the pawn, now you just play rook to d3, and you're threatening to play rook to f3, pinning the queen to the king, and the threat is too big. They cannot stop you from either checkmating or winning this rook. So that's how that would go. And that's the end of the Bobby Bo Show. Thanks for watching, folks. Smash like if you enjoyed, just so I know. Make sure you're subscribed. Some of you forgot. See you next time. Hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Goodbye.